Morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. Today is Friday, July 7th. We're wrapping up the first week of the first month in quarter three. Mostly, been flat to the downside a little bit from recent highs as we predicted last week. So let's hope next week we get a little bit of a recovery, because we did know that end of quarter two, beginning of quarter three was going to be a little bit wonky. It's rarely straight up halfway through the year. So we've got some volatility, as exampled by DXY. Pretty big, pretty choppy move higher up to this 103.6 level, which we marked out as resistance, and pretty strong rejection from that level yesterday. So if you remember when we were talking, it was rejecting off, and we mentioned, a close below 103.1 was likely going to be bearish. We're obviously dropping pretty hard down to these lows right here. And we're obviously below the support level that I lined out at 102.4, which was kind of my bull bear mark. So this was kind of, if it breaks up here, then I was expecting some bearishness from risk assets. And if it, confirms below 102.4, I expect some bullishness from risk assets. And just to kind of give some, rhyme and reason to why DXY is moving crazy is, remember we talked about unemployment rates dropping today, and we had the ADP employment numbers, which was mainly the reason for the steep drop yesterday. But for some reason these numbers aren't updating. So I pulled up a tweet for everybody just to give you the numbers. So the estimate was around 230K. We got 209K, but the unemployment rate did drop to 3.6% from 3.7. So this number was a complete miss, which was what the markets wanted to see. And this was at expectations. So, wasn't too bad. And if we just check the chart, you will see, right around that 630, we did see a big, a drop back to these recent lows. And then obviously it jumped higher. And I think it jumped higher because the news today was definitely much better than what we got yesterday, but obviously wasn't exactly what everyone wanted to see right at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm sorry, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So the one number that stands out to me as worrisome, especially in reference to the likelihood of a 25 basis point hike on the 26th, which is the next FOMC meeting, is the average hourly earnings increasing. So they were estimated at 4.2%, rose to 4.4%. So they're even. They did not drop from the previous month. That to me is worrying, because it implies that inflation is a little bit more sticky than we expect, which further implies a 25 basis point hike at the end of July. So chances right now for a 25 basis point hike at the end of July are actually above 80%. I think it's close to 90%. So something to definitely watch out for as we approach recent highs. And speaking of recent highs, we talked about anytime we get equal highs and no follow through, it's usually going to be a sell-off event. Doesn't always mean it runs to the low end of the range, but we obviously got halfway down. So I think that's somewhat positive for the bulls. Only took out half of the range before moving back towards the top end of the range. But what you want to look for, and I guess just to make sense of these lines, told the TTC community, if we get above 44.50, likely to move up to 44.80, and that's clearly what is happening now. The bulk of that trade is over, and now we move on to the next. So I'm going to get rid of these lines because that trade played out quite quickly this morning. Very happy for all the TTC members that caught that. But where your next level of worry is at the 44.80 level, because you could drop right back down and do something like that. Or if you reclaim 44.80, then you'll run to the top of these highs, right around that 4,500 number. And obviously, if you get above there, then you'll run up to 45.11, which in my opinion is pretty solid resistance, just based on the fact that it coincides with this high from late April. Now, this is the April high, so 46.30 may be a better bull target if 45.11 is broken, but 45.11 is the first number that needs to be broken, because that obviously coincides with that previous high. And then just to zoom out again, the reason we're looking at what number is that? The reason we're looking at 46.30 is because it coincides with the high from April. Actually, so it's not actually the April high. The April high is right here at 45.88. So my apologies here. Got my dates mixed up a little bit. That's actually the May high. So the April high is actually 45.95, and then the May high is 46.30. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and draw another line here, because basically this is going to turn into a giant demand zone. So, and the way that we would trade this on a higher time frame is obviously break above 45.11, move up into the demand zone, and then this whole area right here is probably just going to be chop city before break higher or break back down to 45.11. So something to be cognizant of as we move into July if good things do happen. But we have to be cognizant. 45.80 likely to be strong resistance. We could drop back down to the VWAP, the weekly VWAP, or down to the low end of the range. Both of these areas would be potential reversal areas. And then if you get above 44.80, you move up to 4,500, and then 45.11 is that marquee resistance that if you break up above, you'll head to 4,600. So looking at Bitcoin, obviously not as strong as equities today, but still moving a little bit higher from the early morning session. The main worry is that we, unlike equities, remember equities, we busted above. I'll go back to 1 hour to make sense of this. Remember, we busted above the 45.50 and then we moved higher. Bitcoin, if we just kind of make that quick comparison, was unable to bust above the 1 hour estimated 200 moving average. So we need to get above basically 30,450 to then move up to 30.6 to then move up to, around 31K. So we're obviously getting rejected here. If we drop below these levels right here, then we are likely going to revisit back down to 29.8. So basically the way I was looking at it is if you get rejected off 34.50, then you're probably just going to end up dropping back down to the range. But, it's always important to consider where you previously traded in the past and where those lows were. So I'd probably expect 30.1 to have some sort of strength, if it does get there. But if you drop again, you're definitely going to head to 29.8. And then you obviously have 29.5 to contend with if you drop below 29.8. Now, let's say we hold at 30.1. If you get above 30.450, like I said before, target 30.6, then target 31. If you get above 31, obviously start targeting 31.5, and then we know what happens if you get above that level too. So if we do make it up to 31 over the weekend, maybe a good short opportunity, because remember, this has been our giant range. So a lot of people just been shorting up here. So just something to consider. I wouldn't just start jumping in. I'd want to see some price action like this first. Meaning, maybe we jump up above 31 and then immediately get sold off, then I'm probably shorting back down into the range. So, this is the deviation. We've covered this a lot. This is the deviation. So both resulted in sell-offs near the low end of the range, at least to the halfway end of the range. So anytime you're shorting, halfway point first, full trade second. So looking at ETH, no 1 hour estimated moving average, the 1 hour 200 estimated moving average is hovering high above current price at about 1900. So the magic number today was basically breaking above the body candles of this range. So get above 1880, target 1900. Remember, 1900 could result in a sell-off. Except above 1900, which good confluence here with both the trend the trend as well as the 1 hour estimated 200 moving average. So break above 1900, start targeting 1930, and then of course get above 1930, and then we start targeting these highs from back in early July. And then of course on the the bearish side of things, for this one it's difficult because you would expect 1860 to act as support. So if we got rejected at 1880, you'd probably drop to 1860. Now that's not really a great trade in my opinion. The way that I trade, it's too pardon me, there's not enough meat on the bone for this trade. Therefore, I'm only longing above 1880, and then I'm shorting below 1860. Because if we go below 1860, I have a feeling we'll grab these lows again, which coincide with these lows down here. And we did kind of sweep these lows. We definitely swept this low, but we didn't sweep this low, which is still something that I've got on my radar for the future. And I have a feeling we'll end up sweeping that at some point in time. So my opinion is that if you break below 1860, start targeting 1830, possibly all the way down to just above 1800. Remember, you could see another bounce at 1830 because then it would sweep that low. But something to consider that we could drop down here. But if I did short 1860 and then we started chopping around 1830, I'd probably close, because again, if you are targeting these lows, it's only like 10-20 bucks, and you're obviously just shorted a $30 move. Take your wins and walk away from that type of trade, especially if you're just targeting the lows and you're not bearish down to 1700 level. So that's my outlook for Ethereum too. And then of course we went over above 1900 good things and all that fun stuff. So just to cover what's coming next week, I believe we have PPI next week, and as well as CPI. So CPI on Wednesday and PPI Thursday. So those will definitely, we know CPI will definitely bring the vol. PPI a little bit less so, but next Wednesday, should be, at least we have a target on the wall going into next week, right? So we can kind of start to make sense of what price action may look like based on the data that we're given. So Mondays are typically bad. So if we close bad today, maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum and some alts, run a little bit over the weekend, and then, drop right back to where they started, or where they ended, I should say, at the end of today's session, because, futures open Sunday evening into Monday morning, and typically they normalize that data. So whatever if we get a small pump Saturday into Sunday, it'll probably be sold off into Monday, normalize that. Maybe we get a little sell off Monday. We do see a lot of selling Monday. We typically have seen buying Tuesday, and then depending on what CPI will be, we'll obviously react to that data. We don't have even have any predicted information yet. So when that comes on Monday or over the weekend, we'll obviously report that to all of you guys and discuss what's coming. But in my opinion, just based on if equities close well today, I mean, it looks likely, unless it's sold off back to the weekly VWAP before the close today, I'll probably be interested in some Bitcoin and Ethereum shorts. Even though it obviously is getting rejected here, I'm not going to jump in until, a break below 30.2 in terms of a short. And I'm patiently waiting for a break above this 1 hour estimated 200 moving average for a long. Just to quickly cover ETH BTC, still been quite weak. And we obviously dropped below this support level that I lined out yesterday, which was why I was like, don't long ETH over Bitcoin, because it was tapping that line. We need to see a reaction. So now we've deviated back under, and now we need to get back above 0.062. And I'm still targeting, really getting into ETH at, this point, a break above the 0.065 level. So as long as it sits in this area or lower, I'm way more interested in Bitcoin than I am Ethereum. And that's just how it's going to be until we get above this level. So that's the outlook for the weekend. Hope it helped everybody. Good luck. Happy trading. See everybody on Monday for Trading Rebellion. We have a special guest, Cantor and Clark. New Twitter handle is @theflowhorse. Very excited to hear his outlook for Q2 and what he's watching. And of course, you'll hear from your main panelists as well. So talk to everybody Monday. Have a fantastic weekend.